South African farmers and labour unions say that the European Union is selling chicken legs, thighs and wings at below cost, effectively dumping them into South Africa and threatening local companies and jobs. EU producers make enough money marketing just chicken breasts in their home market, so their so-called dark meat is essentially sold as a waste product elsewhere. Europe says its farmers are simply more competitive and efficient compared to their peers in South Africa. Now, this argument, however, leaves South African authorities in a very tough position. Either they upset relations with their biggest trading partner or watch the demise of their poultry industry, which employs 60,000 people and is a source of 65% of all chicken consumed in the country. Right then, let's get some more sense of where exactly this is going. Angelo Coppola joins me now live from Johannesburg with more data on the story. Angelo, is there any sense of regret in Pretoria now at having signed that EPA with the EU?
Well, the EPA covers a range of other products as well. The DTI tells me that the country now has access for sugar exports into the country as well as ethanol, and there's also improved access for other agricultural products. So the EPA has kept many of the benefits from the previous deal, which was known as the Trade Development Cooperation Agreement, which provides access for industrial products too. So another win here in terms of the EPA is that around geographic indicators. Now the words like Karoo lamb and rooibos tea can only be used in South Africa, but it's been suggested that perhaps Minister Davies has a little bit of regret in terms of the chicken products because they weren't really dealt with properly either in the previous deal or in the current deal. But generally, there are no regrets because of the bigger picture. Raman?
Indeed. Let's talk about that bigger picture with some numbers, Angelo. How do these prices compare? Chicken costs in South Africa for the consumer versus imported chicken from Europe for the South African consumer?
Well, according to Statistics South Africa, the cost of a portion of those chicken pieces you were talking about from the EU lands in South Africa at about $1.13 per kilogram. That's landed. In South Africa, you could probably produce that same amount of chicken for $1.51 per kilogram as well. But the local poultry association are telling me that it's about the way that the EU prices their chicken. Their spokesperson was saying that we get the leftovers and because of the large margins that the EU makes on those chicken breasts, it can afford to export the bits that the EU consumers don't want below cost. And I'm told that a whole chicken in South Africa can probably be produced at around $1.28, while in the EU it's around $1.88 to $2.11 per kilogram in the EU. So there is a price differential, and it does seem that it is being dumped here. Rama?
Indeed, and of course we can't really ignore the fact that there are some subsidies that also come into play at that particular point. But let's talk about the terms of this economic partnership agreement. Now there's a dispute. Does that trade deal provide for any mechanisms to actually resolve this particular dispute of essentially what looks like, at face value, dumping into the South African market?
Well, there are a whole range of corrective measures. There's a so-called toolbox that's in place here. Some good and some are better for South Africa than the previous deal. In the EPA, if South African chicken producers can prove what they refer to as a disturbance, then the corrective measure can be determined. Only once it's proved that there is a provisional, only once it's proved can we then see a provisional safeguard being implemented. At the moment, that's what's in place. It's around 13.9%. It's temporary, but I am led to believe that the industry is getting together with the minister and ITAC to determine whether it's enough, because the industry is saying obviously it's not enough and they need some more protection. That meeting's happening in around the middle of February, so we're going to have to wait until then, Rama.
Indeed, quite a bit of time there. But one of the arguments that we keep hearing, especially from the EU side, the EU Trade Commissioner made this argument before that, look, our chicken producers, poultry farmers in the EU are simply more efficient than South African counterparts. So if we take that argument at face value, is there any cost, is there any fat, so to speak, that South African farmers can trim in order to cope and adapt with this much cheaper stuff that's being dumped in the market?
Well, chickens basically need to grow on maize and soybeans, and South Africa pays significant more than its competitors in Argentina, Brazil and America. So that's the first issue. Government, I'm told, are looking at ways to minimize those production costs, although they haven't come up with any detail yet, and it's been a long time coming. The technical efficiency of the sector in the country, I'm told, is also quite high, but it can be improved. That's according to the experts. The production processes, as they say, can be mechanized, which might lead to some job losses, so there's got to be a trade-off there. But the margins are tight, and that's due mainly to the local currency, which has been so weak against the US dollar. That's caused prices for maize and soya to skyrocket, and this was helped along by the drought that we've just been through here, which meant that more feed had to be imported at higher cost. So we have a major issue. It's almost a double whammy that the local producers have faced, as well as higher transport costs because of the weaker currency and the increase in Brent crude. So there's a lot of tension in the chicken sector at the moment. Raman?
Indeed, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for that. That's Angela Kuppel, of course, live in Johannesburg.